ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi, I'm Patricia Carvelis, the host of Politics Now. That's the ABC's podcast covering the political news you need to know when you need to know it. Because politics affects us all. So join me and the ABC's best political journalists for your daily political fix. It's called Politics Now, and you can find it and follow it on the ABC Listen app.
At 94, Rupert Murdoch has finally achieved his ultimate succession plan. The media mogul has secured a deal to have his son Lachlan take complete control of his empire once he dies, after coming to a financial deal with his three older children, Prudence, Elisabeth and James. Today, journalist Paddy Manning, author of Successor, the first unauthorised biography of Lachlan Murdoch, on the deal and what it means for the media landscape. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Paddy, first, why don't we step back to where this succession battle really all began? Tell me about this trust, first of all. It was set up back in 1999. What was its purpose?
The purpose was to settle the divorce of Rupert Murdoch and his second wife, Anna.
The wife of media boss Rupert Murdoch has filed for divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences after more than 30 years of marriage. Anna Murdoch, a novelist, met her husband when she was a writer at the Sydney Daily Mirror.
After 31 years, Anna Murdoch could have demanded half the Murdoch fortune, estimated by Forbes magazine at $8.5 billion.
She left a lot of money on the table to make sure that it was the four elder kids, her three kids, Elisabeth, Lachlan and James, and Prudence, the daughter of Rupert's first marriage. Only those four would ever inherit control of the Murdoch media empire. And so she set down in what was supposed to be absolutely irrevocable terms under the trust, an arrangement where the Murdoch family trust had 8 voting shares. And Rupert Murdoch had 4, and each of the 4 elder children had 1 vote each. And that structure has existed ever since.
All right, so the 4 adult children, they had voting rights when it came to Fox Corporation and News Corporation decision-making, basically.
Yes, so the trust owned a minority, about 40% in ballpark terms, of the voting shares of both Fox and News Corporation. And that's how they controlled the Murdoch media empire, with the holding in those voting shares. And the problem for Lachlan and for Rupert was that when Rupert died under the terms of the trust, his shares effectively expired, and the Murdoch family trust and the whole media empire was left open to the possibility of a 4-way tussle between the 4 elder siblings. Mm-hmm. And in that scenario, only Lachlan shared the conservative politics and worldview of his father. Prue, Liz and James were much more small L liberal. So there was the possibility, and when I wrote my biography of Lachlan Murdoch, I was guided that there was an intention, in fact, amongst the other 3 siblings to, once Rupert died, reassert control of the Murdoch family media empire and do it in a way that protects and enhances democracies around the world rather than undermine them.
So, Paddy, then in September 2023,
yes,
Rupert Murdoch stepped down as chairman. He was 92 years old at that point.
Yes.
And he passed control over to Lachlan. But it was at that point that he really started to question the worthiness, if you like, of the trust. He did not like it anymore, and he went to court to try and change it.
Behind him, his chosen successor and eldest son, Lachlan.
Mr. Murdoch, are you confident of victory?
Opposite them, siblings James, Elisabeth and Prudence. all in Reno to fight over the future of the multi-billion-dollar empire built by their father.
So just remind me what happened in Nevada last year in a Nevada court.
Well, what we now know is that legal advisors came up with a strategy called Project Harmony, an attempt to try and resolve this and ward off this dispute. And the idea was to create super voting shares in the Murdoch family trust that Lachlan would hold so that he could outvote his siblings, so that he couldn't be rolled on the Murdoch family trust. And that's what the Nevada court case was all about. That was what was being thrashed out in Reno when we saw Lachlan, Rupert, all three siblings trundling up and down the courtroom steps to argue in front of the probate commissioner in closed court that it was fair for Lachlan and in the economic interests of all beneficiaries of the trust, it was fair for Lachlan to be given this super voting shares and effectively to disenfranchise his siblings.
But as you said, Paddy, the trust was meant to be irrevocable.
Yes.
And Rupert and Lachlan failed in this court bid, didn't they?
Well, they did fail in the first instance, but there was an appeal process underway. Lachlan and Rupert were appealing the ruling, but it was clearly messy. And there was always, for the last 6 years at least, there have been attempts to engineer a kind of buyout of, in particular, James, who was the most vocal critic of Fox News and of the editorial direction of the Murdoch media, on issues, whether it's from race to climate change to democracy.
James Murdoch has made no secret of his political differences with his father, donating more than $1 million to Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden's campaign and speaking out about climate change, income inequality and healthcare.
The generation that's been making decisions for a while now has really not delivered on a variety of kind of existential issues.
So, Paddy, that then brings us to today. All these court proceedings, they did end up bringing the family to the negotiating table, and now a deal has been done. So just tell me about that.
What has effectively been achieved here is that the siblings have been bought out at something like 80 cents in the dollar. The value of the voting shares as they trade on markets in New York and News Corp's case in Sydney, is moving around all the time. But at $3.3 billion US, which is $1.1 billion for each of the disaffected siblings, they are getting effectively 80% of market value according to the New York Times, and I understand that arithmetic is pretty reliable. There were previous offers, as we know, from the Times reporting of the proceedings in Nevada at 65 cents in the dollar, which were rejected by the siblings. So really, it's been an argument actually about price as much as anything else. And, it's interwoven with a complicated kind of family dynamics.
But this amounts to roughly 80% of the value of the stock. That's a lot, right? That's huge. This must be a win for the three siblings, is it not?
Well, it's a win in the sense that they walk away with the money. It's a complicated thing because, there are issues of principle at stake here as well. If you were to ask James Murdoch now whether he would have taken the money or would have preferred to see, Fox News moderate its political line, stop endorsing crazy conspiracy theories like about elections being stolen, and stop denying climate change and just kind of pull back to a level of an editorial line that was a little bit less risky, I don't know. I think that would be a tough question for James to answer. But in the end, the re-election of Donald Trump to the presidency has kind of strengthened the arm of Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch, who are arguing in court that any attempt to moderate the political line at Fox News, which is the most contentious and powerful of the media properties that are owned by the Murdochs, would be, economically damaging. Because what you've seen since Trump got re-elected, Fox News is crushing its competitors. Now, with Trump back in the ascendancy and Fox News demonstrably in touch with, the sentiment in middle America, advertisers are returning, and that's been reflected in the share price and it's been reflected in the ratings.
And now that Lachlan has control and the three younger siblings are sort of out of the picture, if you like, the Murdoch empire, once Rupert dies, we'll just see more of the same, will we? It will not change particularly. Its worldview will remain the same. And that's what he wanted, was it, Rupert?
Yes, I think there's no doubt that, and Rupert Murdoch said so himself in the court case, that he believed it was vitally important to preserve the conservative voice in the American media, in particular at Fox News, but also at the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal and the other properties that the Fox and News Corporation own in Australia and Britain.
All right. Well, Paddy, this new trust, it lasts until 2050, so that's 25 years. What happens after that, do we know? Is there a sense of that in these documents?
Well, what happens after 2050, I don't know.
Yeah,
But it seems to suggest that there maybe is an aspiration for another generation of Murdoch media moguls. You know, Lachlan and Sarah Murdoch's kids, it does allow for his children time to enter the business and if they want to take control.
Well, it's been a fascinating succession battle, of course. Maybe as fascinating as the TV series. But just tell me, in terms of the media landscape as a whole, you know, we know that Rupert Murdoch, he played a huge part in helping Donald Trump get elected the first time round because of Fox News. So how important is this succession plan to people like Donald Trump and people within the MAGA circle?
There's no discounting the power and influence still of Fox News, and you have got Lara Trump's got her own show now there. You know, you've got a former Fox News commentator running the Defense Department. You know, you have a Fox News White House once again. But I think there is no question that the power of the legacy media is under challenge. And at the end of the day, Fox and News Corporation, those businesses still are fundamentally cable television and newspaper businesses. And those are legacy media that have structural challenges and are probably past their prime. It still is a business in decline. And I think that's part of the reason why it's been so hard to reach a settlement.
All right. Well, Paddy, for a father to be involved in a court case with his own children is in itself not that common, let's face it. What do you think? Is this the end now of this succession battle? It's all sorted and done now and they can be a happy family again? What do you reckon?
Well, I don't know about a happy family. I think that for Rupert Murdoch, there is a measure of vindication in this settlement, in that he has been able to choose Lachlan as his successor and pass over to him unquestioned control. But he's been able to do that at the expense of severely damaging his relationships with three other of his children. Whether Lachlan and Rupert, if they had their time again, go through that legal process, it was sort of dirty laundry for the family to be, you know, aired in public like that. You know, maybe in retrospect they wouldn't go down that legal route again. Rupert Murdoch is 94. Whether he's able to mend his relationships with his children before he dies, I think is an open question.
Paddy Manning is a journalist and author of Successor, The High-Stakes Life of Lachlan Murdoch. This episode was produced by Jessica Wukyanov. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. To get in touch with the team, please email us on ABC News Daily at abc.net.au. Thanks for listening.